The playoffs are finally here. We've been waiting all year for this. So this week we're going to give you our entirely accurate playoff predictions, or at least one of us is going to give you an entirely accurate playoff prediction. The other's wearing a red shirt. Starting things off, wildcard weekend. We've got the Cleveland Browns head on down to Houston to take on the Houston Texans. Mr. Watson is coming home. Unfortunately, he's not playing because I would love to see that Texans defense terrorize him. Unfortunately for the Texans, they're a great story. CJ Stroud has exceeded everyone's expectations. Nico Collins looks like a legit number one option. The Browns are just too good defensively. Their offensive line's too good. Their running game is too well established. And when it gets to be the playoff time, I know the Texans' running game has been better, but if you've got an elite defense and you can run the ball, I will generally side with you over pretty much everyone else. Texans defense, not quite on the level of the Browns. Their offensive running game, not there. Their O-line's not on the same level. And let's be honest, Joe Flacco still has a little bit of magic left in him. I am worried about Joe Flacco in this year's playoffs. He is going to make some noise. So give me the Browns on this one.
Well, I think Texans fans will look at this game and say, I know we lost 36-22 when we played in the regular season, but we had Davis Mills, we had Case Keenum playing quarterback. And that is true. It will be a lot closer. But you take a look, even in spite of how good CJ Stroud has been this season, he may win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Against good defenses, he has struggled. They were bad against the Jets defense. The Panthers defense, as bad as they've been as a team, has been very solid this year, certainly in specific games. And then against the Ravens defense in week 1, they did not look good. They only put up 9 points. So there is the potential for CJ Stroud to struggle against a Browns defense, which is elite. And I think it's going to be closer. But the Texans just don't have enough talent defensively to slow down the Browns offense. I mean, if Joe Flacco has a couple interceptions early, maybe the game can swing in the Texans' favor, but I expect the Browns to win.
It would take a Joe Flacco disaster class for the Browns to lose. Anyway, moving on over to Arrowhead Stadium, Chiefs are hosting the Miami Dolphins. And the last 2 weeks for the Dolphins have been rough. They got beat up by the Ravens, and they lost a close one to the Bills thanks to a late game 2 pick. Now, I think that is in large part due to the fact they deliberately rested Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert. They made the decision that, look, these guys might be able to play at 90-95%, and that would greatly help our offense, but we are going to make the playoffs, so we're just going to rest them. We'll accept the fact we've got to go play a road game. It'll have to happen eventually. Might as well make it the first week of the season. Looking over at the Chiefs, their defense is great. Patrick Mahomes, morbidly obese Travis Kelce, and wide receivers outside Rashee Rice who can't catch the ball. The only reason I am going to say the Chiefs win this one, and it will be a close game, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will be effective, is because Rashee Rice has taken that next step. If we were still waffling around with Travis Kelce being the Chiefs' number 1 receiving threat, I'd say, okay, it might be over for them. They've got no real offensive development. Isaiah Pacheco running up the middle can only get you so far. But because Rashee Rice has taken that step, I think he's going to be the X factor in this game. We know what Waddle and Hill are going to do. I've got faith in Tua with a healthy offense. He's going to be able to make it work. But I just think the Chiefs get away from a little bit with this one. And that Chiefs defense is able to do just enough to stop the Dolphins' offense from going ballistic. I'm going to say 31-28 Chiefs.
I don't know if the Chiefs are going to put up 31 points. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to put up 28 points against that Chiefs defense. Neither of those feel likely to me. And, I fully expected you to go with the Dolphins, so props to you for making the correct pick by picking the Chiefs. I admire that.
Tristan, you admire many things about me, I'm sure. We could record an entire podcast about my greatness. Tell us what you think of this game, though.
Well, the Dolphins, they've beaten one above 500 team this year. The only team that they beat that was above 500 was the Cowboys by 2 points in the Dolphin Stadium, a Cowboys team which is very good. They're the second seed in the NFC for a reason, but they're horrible on the road. Undefeated at home, bad on the road. The Dolphins were always going to win this game, and this Dolphins team played the Chiefs earlier in the season, and we're going to see more of the same. The Chiefs now, with Rashee Rice becoming a bigger part of that offense, Isaiah Pacheco getting rest in Week 18, even with him being banged up, he's going to be more explosive than ever. He's been great all season long, so the Chiefs should win relatively easy fashion. The Dolphins feel like the Bills team last year, which was on fire during the whole first and second part of the season, or middle part of the season, and then they fall apart towards the end of the season.
Yeah, except their quarterback has a functioning elbow, unlike the Bills of last year. Speaking of Buffalo, they are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. They kind of crept up and stole that number 2 seed in the AFC and that home field playoff advantage for the first 2 rounds. Playing the Steelers with Mason Rudolph starting at quarterback, and we can all be in awe of Mike Tomlin's ability to win 9-10 games. with elite offensive and defensive weapons around them. But it ends here, man. I don't care how good that Steelers defense is. It's not going to matter. Even if they had TJ Watt, the Bills would win this game. Without TJ Watt, with no consistent number one pass rusher up and down the field all day. The only thing which could possibly go wrong for Buffalo is it turns out to be a rainy, snowy day, and their offense really can't get going because they can't pass the ball too well. But even if that happens, they now have James Cook, who's an effective running back. Their interior offensive line is very solid, much better than the Steelers' interior defensive line. I got absolute faith in the Bills in this one. They're going to the second round.
Well, unfortunately in the AFC, we are agreeing on every single pick because the Steelers, without TJ Watt, that defense is going to be a shell of itself. And you take a look at the Bills' defense. They've given up 17 points to the Chiefs, 10 points to the Cowboys, and what was it? And 14 to the Dolphins just now. So against offenses that are much better than the Steelers, quarterbacks that are much better than Mason Rudolph. I mean, Tua, Patrick Mahomes, they're not going to let Mason Rudolph dice them up and down the field. Even though I know if a few more players got injured, Rasul Douglas, or got banged up there against the Dolphins, there is no chance they lose this game.
The only thing which could conceivably go the Steelers' way, last week Najee Harris remembered he was like 280 pounds and ran downhill really hard. That may be able to get the Steelers' offense going. If they can drag it out, they can make it a slow game with some bad weather, that might do them some favors, but I just don't see that happening. On over to the NFC, and we got a fun matchup. Cowboys fans will remember the last time this happened. Packers are visiting Jerry World, and a certain Hail Mary took place to a certain uncovered tight end, leading to a heartbreaking Cowboys loss in Dak Prescott's rookie year. Now, the bad man who did that is banged up with no Achilles in New York, and they've got his replacement, who unfortunately may be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But his weapons are worse, his offensive line is worse, his defense is worse, and the Cowboys are just a better team. They're better at every position, besides maybe quarterback. That remains to be seen. Give me the Cowboys in this one. Dominant defensive performance over a shaky tackle duo. Dominant offense performance against a weak defense.
Well, the Packers, they're not that good on the road. They're 4-5 this season on the road. The Cowboys are undefeated, and the Packers are the youngest team in the NFL with basically no playoff experience on their roster. The Cowboys, even though they typically lose in the playoffs, Dak has been there before. CeeDee Lamb got playoff experience last year, so I think they're going to be better than they were last year in the playoffs, and I think they should win this game. I mean, CeeDee's had over 1,700 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. That Packers defense is not slowing him down in the first round of the playoffs in Jerry World. I just do not see that happening.
I don't know, man. There's a reason Deebo Samuel got more Pro Bowl votes than old CeeDee Lamb. He may not be that guy. What do 49ers fans know that we don't, Tristan?
Apparently 49ers fans just think they have the all-decade team.
But Detroit taking on the Rams, and here's where the differences start. Now, Sam Laporta got hurt. Some people are saying, oh, it's a meaningless game. Those people are fools and idiots. The Lions were playing for the 2 seed, got the 3 seed. Such is life. That was still an impactful game. I understand why they had their starters out there, but building momentum going into the playoffs, get a quality win to end their season, and now they're going to start to catch fire a little bit. Jared Goff, great quarterback, particularly if he plays indoors or at home. Their offensive line, one of the best, if not the best in the NFL. Their running game, dual-headed threat. They can do everything. 2,000-yard rushers, special unit. And of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown is better than any wide receiver our pals Los Angeles Rams can trot out there. Now, does Stafford match up horribly against the Lions defense? Yes. Do Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp scare me a little bit as someone who supports the Lions? Yes. Is that offensive line solid in Los Angeles? Yes. This is going to be a high-scoring game because the Rams defense is not slowing down the Lions at home, and I don't have much faith in the Lions defense unless Hutch gets going to slow down the Rams. But ultimately, I think this Lions team pulls it out late. I think they've got more intestinal fortitude. I think they can perform in the clutch. They performed well in the clutch against the Cowboys, if not for some questionable officiating. They had a game-winning drive, or certainly a game-tie drive.
It was in fact a game-losing drive.
Not game-losing drive, a game-losing 2-point conversion. Big difference. The drive itself, success. The part which came after, don't need to get into that. It's a clutch team. You are a hater of Dan Campbell, a man with small hands, a man who doesn't really like the nitty-gritty of football, a man who is not popular in locker rooms. That's you. Tell us why the Lions are going to lose, Tristan.
I am not a hater of Dan Campbell. The way you have just portrayed me to the audience is fake
You've betrayed
news.
yourself. I gave them a summary of what you've been saying all year. That's a Spark Notes.
I like Dan Campbell. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done with Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff, he was thrown to the curb by Sean McVay, said he wasn't good enough to win him a Super Bowl. Granted, he then won a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, but that's besides the point. He helped turn around Jared Goff's career. He built a very solid offense. He built a really good offensive line. Defense still needs some work, but he deserves credit for all those things. I think the Cowboys fans that whine and complain because the Lions are whining and complaining, who cares? They've built a very good team over there in Detroit. But I will say this. Dan Campbell's ego has gotten to him each of the last 2 weeks, and it is going to cause them to lose in the first round of the playoffs. Going for 2 after the penalty, major mistake. They could have won that game in overtime and got the 2 seed. They decided not to do that. This past week, they're going to wind up with the 3 seed. The Cowboys were not going to lose to the Commanders. There's no chance they have the 2 seed, and they decide to play all of their starters and their rookie tight end, who has looked like the best tight end in the NFL this season, especially since TJ Hawkinson is done for the year, and the Vikings were going to be in the playoffs in the first place. He's the best tight end in the playoffs. I'm not going to say best player on their offense because they do have Amon-Ra and Jameer Gibbs. But
Penei Sewell.
Well, yes, but best skill player. They have a lot of good talent on that offense. Regardless, you have an opportunity to rest your starters, get them ready for a massive divisional matchup in which you're going to have to go against the Rams. Matthew Stafford, your former quarterback, and you didn't do that. The Rams, they've won 7 of their last 8. They are hot. They are beating everyone they come against. Matthew Stafford has been on fire. Cooper Kupp got another week of rest. Kyron Williams got a week of rest. Stafford got a week of rest. Players that have dealt with injuries this season, and I think Stafford's going to light up that porous Lions secondary. Dan Campbell's ego of having gone for that 2-point conversion, ruining their chance at the 2 seed. This past week, playing Sam Laporta, he's not going to be ready for this game. Rams are winning.
You're a clown for that. To say, oh, we knew the Cowboys were going to beat up on the Commanders. Much like how we knew, of course, the Eagles were going to beat up on the Giants. Oh, wait. To say that any game is a given, to say these teams, which are good but clearly have flaws, are saying, oh, they're impervious, they're clearly going to win. That's ridiculous. The Lions were playing for something. They should have played their starters. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. The Lions offense is going to be just fine without Sam Laporta. Someone else is going to step up, and the Lions are going on to the second round. You are a hater to the core. Final game of Wild Card Weekend. Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night in what looks like it's going to be a wet and wild game. And I really do want to pick the Buccaneers, but there are 3 things stopping me from that. 1, Baker Mayfield got injured against the Panthers and only put up 9 points. If he's able to get healthy, good for him. That will revitalize the Buccaneers offense. I'm skeptical of him doing that in a week. Second off, the Buccaneers, not an amazing running game, not an amazing rushing attack. Great passing attack. Mike Evans cooked this year. All their receivers incredibly effective, but on the ground, they're just not that good. And when you play in the rain, that's going to be a much bigger factor. And finally, the Eagles, despite all their shortcomings, still have a good interior defensive line and still have a great rushing attack. I know A.J. Brown's going to miss the game. I know Jalen Hurts' finger shouldn't have looked the way it looked. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles have the ability to beat up on the Buccaneers up front. Unless Vita Vea cooks something devious up and completely locks down the interior of that defensive line, I just don't see a scenario where the Buccaneers don't get pounded on the ground, particularly if it's raining and that weather takes away their passing attack. Give me the Eagles in this one. I don't like picking Philadelphia, but I think they match up too well against the Bucs with the weather.
Well, Baker Mayfield hobbling around out there, that would matter if the Eagles' scoring defense wasn't the worst one in the playoffs. Their defense basically isn't even on the field when they're playing an offense capable of moving the ball. And that's exactly what the Bucs have between Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cade Otton here and there makes big plays. Rachaad White out of the backfield has been very good this season as a check down. He's been solid on the ground as well, running the ball. So the Eagles have the worst side of the ball on the field in their defense. And then on offense, A.J. Brown, he hasn't been that spectacular recent weeks. He's also not going to be on the field. Devonta Smith missed last week, so how healthy is he going to be for the game? And who's a running back? DeAndre Swift. He also missed last week due to injury. So the Eagles, you talked about the Bucs injuries. The Eagles are almost as injured, and Jalen Hurts has an injury to his finger on his throwing hand. So
whatever running back they roll out behind that offensive line will be able to do just fine. You must push your narratives. I understand you hate the NFC East more than I do in some aspects, but come on,
The Buccaneers
man.
are winning.
The Buccaneers putting up 9 points in a must-win game with good weather cannot inspire confidence.
This is the Panthers' defense, as bad as their offense has been, as bad
They're
as they've
not
been.
9 points bad. They're not 9 points good. Excuse me. They're not some lockdown unit. Come on now.
The Texans only scored 13 points against the Panthers when they played them.
Yeah, well, the Texans were dealing with the fact their rookie quarterback decided he was the second best in the class. He remembered that there was a certain man who went ahead of him, who outplayed him that game, who continues to be disrespected. Before this becomes a Bryce Young video, now we get into the land of hypothetical. So let's talk about what the rest of the AFC is going to look like. My divisional round matchups, I got the Buffalo Bills headed on over to face the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe Tristan does too. Excuse me, not headed on over. The Buffaloes are hosting the Chiefs. And this game is going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. Whether that be Josh Allen turning the ball over. He loves doing that. Whether that be the Chiefs wide receivers dropping the ball. They love doing that. Both these teams have good defenses. Both these teams have solid running games, and both these teams have experience in the playoffs and have scored points in the playoffs in the past when they are healthy. I am going to give this edge to the Buffalo Bills here. One, Josh Allen is healthier than he was last year. I don't think he replicates his failures in the second round for a second season in a row with a functioning shoulder. Two, I just don't have that much faith in the Chiefs. The guy who bails them out every year in the playoffs, catching the ball from Mahomes, Travis Kelce, is not moving the way he used to. He is no longer getting open when Mahomes goes around and starts scrambling. He's just not the same guy anymore. I think it's Taylor Swift. I think it's a diet. I think the fact that he's 34, all those things have just come together and slowed Travis Kelce down. That is why I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to win this one. Stephon Diggs knows why he rejoined the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen knows who he is. He knows that he has never had a better shot of beating his nemesis than right now. And I think he capitalized on it. This is the best Bills team we've seen in a while from a completion standpoint, and I really do think they're finally going to do it.
Well, in the Mahomes and Josh Allen era, they are 3-3 against each other, but the Chiefs are the Bills' boogeyman in the playoffs. They have beaten the Bills twice in the playoffs, and the Bills have not beat them in the playoffs, and that is exactly what is going to happen. In Week 18, Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times, but they're playing the Dolphins, who don't have a defense quite as good as the Chiefs, who have the second best scoring defense in the NFL, and they weren't able to close out that game late, and also kick return touchdown bailed the Bills out of that game. So when you're playing the Chiefs, who you can't beat in the playoffs, Josh Allen is likely going to turn the ball over against an elite defense, and you have Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball with Rashee Rice emerging. The Chiefs are going to win this game, and I also would like to mention with how good the Chiefs defense is, the Bills have only won 2 games this year in which they scored less than 21 points. It was the weird game against the Giants, which I think was like 14-9, and then it was the game against the Chiefs, who we all know the Chiefs would have won if Kadarius Toney grew a few extra brain cells. And guess what? Kadarius Toney has been
in hypothetical situations. Congratulations. The Bills won that game.
Guess what? Kadarius Toney has been completely phased out of the Chiefs offense. So mistakes like that, drop passes leading to interceptions, they are not going to happen. And the Chiefs are going to be headed to the conference championship again.
The Chiefs faced out one of the 3 people who can get open on their offense. Congratulations. Anyway, still agree on this matchup too, I believe. The Cleveland Browns facing off against the Baltimore Ravens. That's what you have also,
yes.
Right? Here's the thing. That bye week is not the blessing some people think it is. I really do think that having a week to rest is not the best thing for some teams. Having 2 weeks where you don't play your starters, where you have them sit on the sideline, get cold, get out of rhythm, that's a concerning thing. It has affected 1 seeds in the past. It has affected the Baltimore Ravens in the past. Some teams can overcome it, like the Kansas City Chiefs, who have a ton of playoff experience, but you just can't say that same thing about the Ravens. Their defense is going to be just fine. Their defense will be great even, but their offense is going to be a little bit out of rhythm going into that Cleveland defense. And I think that might be enough to make it a competitive game. And when the game is competitive, I default back to who is the better running attack and who is the better defense in the playoffs. Now, both these defenses are just about as good as each other. And from a rushing standpoint, I think the Cleveland Browns are worse in terms of total production, but they've got a better running back situation. They're not going to trot out Dalvin Cook to try and pick up rushing yards. They still have Kareem Hunt. They have Jerome Ford. They really wish they had Nick Chubb, but their offensive line is capable of beating up on opponents, particularly in cold weather games. This is going to be a low-scoring affair. No one is running away from anyone else. It's going right up the middle. And when push comes to shove, I have more faith if the ball comes into his hands late, if he has to make a drive, he has to make a play, in Joe Flacco in the playoffs than I do in Lamar Jackson. I think that elite Browns defense, which has been the best all year, I think their running game, and I think playoff Joe is going to be able to get it done and get the Cleveland Browns their first AFC championship since they regained their team.
The supreme Lamar Jackson hate, I will not tolerate it. You talk about the Browns having a better rushing attack. They have Jerome Ford, and the Ravens have the best...
Don't say Jerome Ford's name that way. Put some respect on Jerome Ford's name. They have Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford's been great.
And the Ravens have the MVP, the best running quarterback in NFL history, who's also elite at passing the ball. And the biggest reason I think the Ravens are going to win this game is because there's a chance Mark Andrews will come back. And I think Mark Andrews being absent and missing a bunch of games this year, we've seen that Ravens offense evolve. Rashad Bateman has finally taken a step to be a productive NFL receiver. It has forced the Ravens to utilize Odell, utilize Zay Flowers, utilize Bateman, have Isaiah Likely emerge as a prominent threat in that offense. And it has led to the Ravens being more multifaceted. And then if you add Mark Andrews back into that rotation, it makes it even harder to guard against the run. And guess who's going to get the ball next? And you threw a shade at the Ravens running backs for no reason. Gus Edwards has been very productive this year. Justice Hill has been productive. They're not signing Dalvin Cook to be their starter heading into the playoffs. That is just not happening.
He's going to be their running back too. He's going to have at least 5, maybe 10 carries in this game. Particularly if it becomes a slugfest on the ground. Dalvin Cook's getting touches whether you and Theo Ash like it or not.
I would be shocked if he has more than 3 carries.
We shall see.
Anyway, Ravens are winning.
And co-parter. On over in the NFC. First off, I've got the Dallas Cowboys facing off against the Detroit Lions, and I praise them a lot. I think they are going to get past the Rams in the first round. But at the end of the day, when you have two high-powered offenses matching up against each other, unless one stands head and shoulders above the other, the better defense will generally win in the playoffs. Jared Goff and Dak Prescott are a similar tier of quarterback. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown are a similar tier of wide receiver. Their running backs, I'd say the Lions are far superior to Tony Pollard, but still, it's a good running game over there in Dallas too. But that Lions defense cannot match up to that the Dallas Cowboys bring out. I know they've been bad down the stretch. I know they have struggled against great teams. But at the end of the day, this is still one of the 5 best defenses in football who can get incredibly hot. And they got hot last week against the Commanders. Held them to, 0 points in the final 3 quarters of that game. Ended Ron Rivera's coaching career. Will they do that to the Lions? Probably not. But they will play much better than what Detroit's going to trot out there. That defense is going to slow Detroit's offense down enough that the Cowboys will be able to run away with this game against that weak Detroit secondary. The only possible way for the Lions to win this game is if Hutchinson replicates what he did the last time the Lions played the Cowboys and has 3 sacks. If that doesn't happen, Cowboys are going up and down the field all day on them.
Well, you are forgetting the Mike McCarthy X factor of clock management late in the game. That could also let the Lions win the game or let them back into the game late. I agree with Isaiah. If that is the matchup we see if the Lions make it to the divisional round, I do still think the Cowboys are going to win because they still are going to be in Dallas's home stadium where their offense is electric and they don't fall apart. And the last time they played the Lions, it was a CeeDee Lamb fumble out of the end zone that also led them to not at least having 3 points on the board. I don't think that's going to happen again. So I would pick the Cowboys to win that one. And in my scenario, they'd be playing the Bucs, which I think is an even easier game for the Cowboys. The Bucs do not have nearly as good an offense as the Lions do. Their defense is probably better than the Lions, but the Cowboys, much like I think they do to the Lions, would blow the Buccaneers out of the building.
Now, Baker Mayfield, if that happens, has the opportunity to do something really funny. Because as you may recall, last season Tom Brady's career ended with a devastating loss to the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round. Somehow they were the 5 seed, the Bucs were the 4 seed. If Baker Mayfield wins in the first round, then goes and does what Tom Brady was not able to do in his final game of his career and beats the Cowboys, that is going to draw some interesting comparisons. We may be talking about a new GOAT if that happens. Land of hypotheticals. I digress. Eagles taking on the 49ers. And look, you can say what you want about what means more about injuries last season. At the end of the day, Eagles defense is beat up. Their offense is beat up. If A.J. Brown doesn't play, I don't think the Eagles have a shot in this one. The 49ers are a superior team to them in almost every aspect of the game. They're going to the NFC Championship game. I don't care that first round bye is going to slow them down, get them a little bit out of sync. They will use this as a tune-up game.
Oh, so you're the soft one for picking the 49ers to win.
Yeah, I'm picking on to beat the Eagles. Why, you want me to say the Eagles are going to win? I had maybe 6 saying they were making it past the first round.
Well, they're not making it past their first round this year. The 49ers, Brock Purdy's last 2 games that he's played in, feathers have been ruffled. He's looked horrible against the Ravens. And in my scenario, I have them coming up against the Rams. And I know Sean McVay doesn't have a great record against Kyle Shanahan. But with Puka Nacua this year emerging as an elite receiver, Cooper Kupp, he is now going to be healthy for this deep playoff run. Aaron Donald, he got rest in Week 18. And he has been very good this year again. He's done Aaron Donald things. The 49ers, they are the more talented team. But Sean McVay finally puts a feather in his cap, beating Kyle Shanahan.
And the Super Bowl winning coach finally puts a feather in his cap.
Well, he still has, Kyle Shanahan's kind of his boogeyman, but he is going to win this game.
Proud of you, man. I thought the 49ers fan base had you whipped, had your tail between your legs. Good on you for doing that. I mean, I don't have it making it much further. That's a wrong prediction, but still. Anyway, AFC Championship game, I got the Buffalo Bills facing off against the Cleveland Browns. I got a lot of respect for Joe Flacco, as you can tell by me saying he's going to get the Browns to the AFC Championship game. He's a great quarterback, or at least he was, and will be in the playoffs. I got a lot of respect for this Browns defense. But at the end of the day, if the Bills can overcome the Kansas City Chiefs, if they can get the monkey off their back, if they can finally break through and get to an AFC Championship game at home with no one but themselves standing in their way, they are punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. They're a better passing attack. Their running game can match up with the Browns. Their defense is worse, but the disparity between Josh Allen and the Bills wide receivers compared to those in Cleveland and Joe Flacco, I cannot in good conscience say that they will lose to the Browns. Give me the Bills going to their first Super Bowl in a long time.
Well, I did not even pick the Browns to make it to that point, so I agree. If the Bills make it there, they're probably beating the Browns unless we get another Josh Allen disaster class. That is completely on the table when it comes to Josh Allen. But in the AFC Championship that will actually be taking place, we'll have the Ravens facing off against the Chiefs. You having fun over there?
Yeah, I'm just grinding some pepper here, don't mind me.
And the Ravens, much like Isaiah said, if the Bills get the monkey off their back, if Lamar Jackson gets the monkey off his back, like I think he will, he can't perform in the playoffs, they are going to beat the Chiefs. They are the more well-rounded team. They have the best scoring defense in the NFL. They have an offense that is much more dynamic than the Chiefs, even with how good the Chiefs' defense is. So in this scenario, where the Ravens are playing the Chiefs, the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl.
Lamar's going to be feeling a little bit Mahomey, huh? Yeah, well, Chiefs ain't making this far, so I don't have to deal with these hypotheticals, but sure. If Baltimore is able to recover from the bye week, they'll probably beat the Chiefs in this situation. Over in the NFC, our good pals San Francisco 49ers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. We know that matchup's gone in the past. We know what the 49ers have done to the Cowboys in the past. But you know, I don't like San Francisco. Their fans, not good people. Their coach, historic playoff choker. No Super Bowls to his name. Their quarterback played horrible the past few weeks. So here's what's going to happen. Brock Purdy is going to drop back for a pass early in the second quarter of this game. Micah Parsons is going to come around the edge, easily dusting whatever tackle they got lined up over top of him, and swing his arm into Brock Purdy's. And the strange thing's going to happen. That surgically repaired UCL is just going to spontaneously explode for the second year in a row. Now, Purdy goes down. Then enters Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold cranks off an immediate 40-yard rush downfield. But as he slides on that San Francisco turf, his cleat jams in the ground and whips himself face forward up off the turf, back into the ground, concussing himself. We're now in an emergency quarterback situation. Once again, the 49ers injuries have mounted up at the worst possible time. Kyle Shanahan cries and urinates in his pants. The Dallas Cowboys cruise past the San Francisco 49ers to make their first Super Bowl of the 21st century. You gotta admit, that's a fun scenario.
You know, if we have any 49ers fans left in our fan base, I think you may be receiving bomb threats in the mail.
Okay, I mean, come on, you got to admit, you kind of want to see that happen.
I do not root for injuries, Isaiah.
They're asking for it, man.
And you said Kyle Shanahan's a playoff choker. Mike McCarthy
has a Super Bowl.
He does have a Super Bowl, which I noticed you specified Kyle Shanahan doesn't have one. In that scenario where it's 49ers versus Cowboys, I just don't see the Cowboys making it to a Super Bowl. I just can't see that happening. Jerry Jones is still alive. He's still the owner of the
You don't root
organization.
for Super Bowls, but if Jerry Jones is alive until he dies, they're not making it.
I'm not rooting for him to be dead. I'm just saying he's still alive, so the Cowboys organizations, they're not going to another Super Bowl.
You think Jerry Jones is on those Epstein lists? I gotta think he was on. Maybe we should be rooting for Jerry Jones to pass on. Anyway, what was your NFC Super Bowl again?
I have the Rams taking on the Cowboys. And before the season, everyone doubted the Rams. They thought they were going to have a top 5 pick. They were talking about Sean McVay going to television. Now, they're going to be in the conference championship. They're going to be taking on the Cowboys. Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua, they have an elite offense. They may have the most skilled position group in the entire NFL. And what is going to happen? They're going to beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they're not going to Super Bowl. And we're going to have Rams-Ravens.
It's insane that your Super Bowl... I see the narratives you lay out. First off, the team you predict to go to the Super Bowl, the NFC, is not making it past the first round. Second, you just given Lamar Jackson the cakiest of cakewalks. He has to play Joe Flacco, Old Man Joe, and then he gets to play the mediocre Kansas City Chiefs, and then he can just tap dance his way to the Super Bowl where he gets to play geriatric Matthew Stafford and the 9-win Rams. Come on, man. What are we doing?
Well, let me say something about the Ravens, regardless of if they were playing the 49ers or Cowboys or someone you perceive to be better than the Rams in the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson is 20-1 against the NFC in his entire career. It's not going to matter who comes out of the NFC if Lamar Jackson is playing in the Super Bowl. The Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl.
Because there's an in on part of the team's jersey. Lamar automatically plays better against them. I have a real issue with takes like that, man. Lamar Jackson has a winning record against the NFC, but come on, it doesn't
20-1 is significant.
And 22 is going to be significant too. Granted, not going to happen. He's done playing NFC teams for the year. My Super Bowl, Buffalo Bills taking on the Dallas Cowboys. A rematch of a Super Bowl which ended in a devastating blowout. The only thing which was memorable about that Super Bowl is Leon Lett getting stripped at the goal line by a plucky Bills wide receiver. Aside from that, complete embarrassment for the Bills. They want revenge. Josh Allen wants his first Lombardi. He wants to put himself back on top of the NFL. He wants to be that guy again. His favor has fallen in recent years, and it will be reestablished through this playoff run, and it will finally be magnified, reach its pinnacle as he overcomes the odds, overcomes the adversity, overcomes having a girlfriend who is more famous than himself to win the Super Bowl. Because at the end of the day, Tristan's alluded to it many times, Mike McCarthy, the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, they're not built for these moments. They may sneak past the 49ers. They're not built for the Buffalo Bills. They're not built for the bright lights. They're not built to be America's team. Give me the Buffalo Bills to win their first ever Super Bowl.
So you talk about me giving the Ravens a cakewalk to the Super Bowl, and then you just give the Bills the Cowboys because there's no chance the Cowboys perform in the biggest moment.
Oh, they beat the Chiefs, which is their rival. You like bringing that up. They got to make it past the first round. They got to play 2 elite defenses. You're giving the... Come on, man. This is not comparable about the
playing the
Steelers
isn't exactly a hard first-round matchup.
Hey, man, you play in the first round as a 2 seed, it's not going to be a hard matchup.
I would pick the Bills to win that as well. I just don't think it's going to be Bills-Cowboys.
Yeah, here's what's going to happen. We're both going to be wrong. We're both going to look like idiots. Odds are one of our 2 Super Bowl teams is going to be out of the playoffs in the first round for both of us. But those were our Super Bowl predictions. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you're still somehow listening and haven't been driven insane by our glacial cold takes, hit the subscribe button, share the video, like it. Your support is tremendously appreciated.